The Clinton News Network. Let's check in with what they had to say about the Hunter deal. Watch.
Breaking news out of Wilmington, Delaware, from the Hunter Biden plea deal hearing. Our Kara Scannell just ran out from inside the courtroom. Kara, bring us up to speed.
Yeah, John. So as I went back into the courtroom, the hearing had just begun again. The judge was back on the bench, and she was pressing the prosecution on this investigation and the four corners of this plea agreement. One of the prosecutors said that the investigation was very much ongoing, and that she asked him, well, what is not covered in this plea agreement if you were leaving the possibility for there being other future charges? So then the judge said, would this include a possible FARA charge that's not registering as a foreign agent? The prosecutor said no, the deal would not include that. It was at that point that she had said to the prosecution, if you can charge that, then what does this mean? And the prosecutors, she asked Hunter Biden's attorneys about that, and he said, well, then there's no deal. And the prosecutor said, then there is no deal. So Biden's team said that the plea agreement, as far as they understood it, was now null and void. They were moving ahead to talk about what the next steps would be in this case. So as of right now, the deal appears to be dead and off the table, and it remains to be seen how they're going to move forward. But he has been charged with those 2 misdemeanor tax evasion charges. But one thing we learned is that this investigation is very much still ongoing.
Ongoing doesn't even match, doesn't even come close. John, tell me your thoughts here. And then let's bring up everyone up to speed with what happened with just hours ago with President Trump.
Yeah, it's actually a perfect segue of what we talked about earlier in Proverbs 20:23. It's also Proverbs 11:1 about unjust scales. You got clear, massive violations of the Biden family. And then they're going, you talk about straining out a gnat and swallowing a camel. They're literally looking at little documents. They added 3 more charges to Trump. 1 for willful obstruction, 2 for trying to obstruct justice. And then they added one of the 2 guys who moved some of the boxes. They didn't destroy anything. And I've talked about this before on FlashPoint. Under the Presidential Records Act, the president is the one who can single-handedly say, no, that is declassified. I declassify that. So they're just trying to continue to make every little gnat that they can find in a piece of paper another charge. We're now at 40 different criminal charges, while somebody who on the video, on a laptop, is getting a misdemeanor probation. That fell apart, thank God, at the last minute.
It's so true. So true. And let me show you this tweet. MSNBC says this. Claire McCaskill to Jen Psaki. They're going to try and indict a father for loving his son who's been addicted to drugs and alcohol. This really isn't. In fact, just watch.
What accusations and arguments do you think they're going to make, given this didn't go exactly as planned today?
Well, they're going to keep doing what they've been doing. They are going to try to indict a father for loving his son who has been addicted to drugs and or alcohol, and without evidence of the father doing anything other than loving that son.
Other than loving that son. Well, let's go check in with Corinne Jean-Pierre and see what the White House has to say about what they would do if to pardon Hunter.
First question to briefing. I know you said not a lot's changed since yesterday and that it's a personal matter, but from a presidential perspective, is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Well, is there?
I just said no. I just answered. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No. Lee, you said no. No pardon for Hunter? What do you think?
Do they even know what the definition of love is? I think the definition of love in the Biden family is how much you can use each other to profit by any means possible, whether it be domestic or foreign entities, regardless of the security of our country and those concerns. And mainstream America is not falling for it. And let me tell you, I do want to say something, because this is what I'm hearing on the streets. I'm out at the local level, at the county level, at the state level campaigning, and people are losing hope. We cannot let all of this chaos in Washington, D.C. let us lose hope. We have to stand our ground and claim our kingdom. Galatians 6:9, do not grow weary in doing good. Christians do not grow weary because of the lies and the chaos happening in Washington, D.C. Hold your family tight. Keep worshiping God. Stay involved in all of those elections, because some of those elections that affect your freedom the most are in your backyard, your schools, your city council, your county judge, your district attorney. That's a huge one that Soros has poured hundreds of millions of dollars into across America, and that's their target number one. There's a reason for that. We need to not be distracted by the UFOs. We need to keep our focus on God. And when things don't go our way, because evil is evil and corruption happens, we have to keep going and trusting God and never stop at every level of government when it comes to activism.
Activism is such a good way to put it. Let me go to John Amajuku, because, John, you've kind of been doing a little bit of that. You've been showing up at a few school board meetings.
Yes, I have. I've traveled to Temecula, California recently and spoke at a school board meeting there. And guess what, Gene? I found out as a result of speaking up at the Temecula, California School Board, I found out that I'm now a white supremacist. And they say that I'm married to a white woman, although my wife is black, my children are black. And so, man, I'm having a hard time adjusting to this newfound whiteness, Well, I tried to
no
put
shame,
on
bro. No shame. Don't no white shame.
It's I'm making that adjustment, Gene. Am I dressed up nice like a white man tonight?
You're doing good. You're doing good.
you know what's funny? Here's the thing. At the school board, I addressed some critical things. In particular, I said that I was against critical race theory, intersectionality, blacks being pandered to. I was against the soft bigotry of low expectations. And now people are challenging me and saying that I'm a non-foundational black American because my father is Nigerian. Although I was born in the U.S., they are telling me that I'm a coon, I'm an Uncle Tom, all of these different things just because I spoke truth. And I say to those who label me, continue to keep the labels coming. I am not going to change. I will fight with all that I have to make sure that our children are not indoctrinated in the public school system. This gender theory and queer theory and intersectionality talk needs to stop, and we need to stand strongly and boldly at our school board meetings and make sure that we push back evil.
So true, so true. And you know what? I love the fact that you and Lee are both on tonight, because you both are standing up and you keep taking hits and you keep on going. But you open the door to gender ideology. So let's talk about, there's a hearing this week. And listen, I want to play this clip. Paula Scanlon, her testimony to Congress. Watch.
Many of you already know this. What you do not know is the experiences of the women on the University of Pennsylvania swim team. My teammates and I were forced to undress in the presence of Leah, a 6'4" tall biological male, fully intact with male genitalia, 18 times per week. Some girls opted to change in bathroom stalls, and others used the family bathroom to avoid this. When we tried to voice our concerns to the athletic department, we were told that Leah's swimming and being in our locker room was a non-negotiable, and we were offered psychological services to attempt to re-educate us to become comfortable with the idea of undressing in front of a male. To sum up the university's response, we, the women, were the problem, not the victims.
Lee, I'll go to you first out of this. I mean, the last comment there is really what this sounds familiar. The same thing with Riley Gaines. The same response. You guys are the problem, not the victims. You guys need to be able, in fact, if you want to go to some counseling, we'll provide counseling for you. Lee, this is crazy. It's just absolutely crazy.
Again, it's chaos, and we know chaos is not of God. And you know who the real people being discriminated against here are? Is the young ladies in those locker rooms whose personal safety is being disregarded. We want to talk about safe spaces. You know, one of the most important safe spaces that young women can have is in locker rooms when they're changing. And it is just beyond me. It seems like, the George Costanza opposite world. The fact that we're even having this conversation, that people think it's okay, that individuals that have gender dysphoria are allowed to go in with their full male parts intact in front of young women and expect young women to change in front of them like that's nothing, that is a lie from the devil. And we need to fight it with everything we have. You know, my local school district in Southlake this week, they're taking some hits this week because they came out and spoke out against this. They came out and spoke out for teachers' First Amendment rights, that they cannot be forced to use gender pronouns that don't match with the biological sex of the student. And they are protecting girls from men changing in their locker rooms. And they're taking the heat for it. But let me tell you, and Pastor John, you already know this too, but if you're not being attacked, you're not doing enough. So count the attacks as joy, because that means that you are doing it for the Lord. The Lord tells us we will be attacked when we stand up for him and his kingdom. And that's okay. Bring the attacks. We are not here to please culture or society. We are here to honor God and build his kingdom.
Yeah, come on, preach it, Lee. That's great stuff. Before I go back to the white supremacists, look at this. Representative Wesley Hunt from Texas. Listen to what he had to say.
Ms. Scanlon, my daughters are going to watch this because you have become their new hero. And I can assure you that my 4-year-old and my 2-year-old daughters will not change in front of biological men. This is ridiculous. I don't care what party you are a part of. If you think that we are all equal and the same biologically, you've literally lost your mind. And when my 2 daughters work hard in the sport, work hard in their craft to be the best that they can be amongst other women, they will compete against other women. I owe Victoria and Olivia and every other young lady in this country that. If you think I'm wrong, I am not the problem. I can assure you.
Such good. You know, John Amanchukwu, I'll go to you out of that. I mean, I love the theme we've got right here. If people are standing up, we need more representatives like Wesley Hunt that are willing to stand up and say, no, this is not a partisan problem. This is a human rights issue that we're dealing with. John, your thoughts?
Representative Wesley Hunt is my kind of man. We need that type of tone and tenor today. He doesn't sound like a man who's emasculated or a man who is neutered. You know, when a man speaks like Representative Wesley Hunt today, people say that he must have toxic masculinity. But we need men like him and more men to follow suit. Speak up and defend and protect our women. I have a wife. I have a daughter. I don't want my daughter to be competing against a boy in a sport. You know, I want my daughter to compete against girls. And I think that now more than ever, men must come to the forefront. We cannot sacrifice our voices and lend them out to feminists who rob us of our position to speak up. We must speak truth to power. When a country falls or when a nation falls, it's oftentimes because they have treated their children in a dastardly manner. In our American ignorance and arrogance, we think that America can't fall. But I believe that we are on a slippery slope today because we are treating our children as if they are expendable. We must speak up for our children. We must protect our children. We must implement laws and policies that protect children. But when you have a nation that's bent on getting us closer and closer towards pedophilia, you get on this slippery slope, and it's a dangerous place. This must stop.
It must stop. John Graves, let me kind of wrap up this little segment here. But as we're seeing all this, we talked about elections do matter and who you vote for matters. Are we seeing, you there with Million Voices, are you seeing any shifts in public opinion? And are people finally coming to the correct side of this issue?
Yes, the people are already on the correct side of this issue. When you talk about this came through Texas when they tried to let boys take showers with girls in the schools in 2017, which is 6 years ago, and men go into women's restrooms. 72% of blacks and Hispanics disagreed with that. They don't want that. It's the liberal elites that are pushing this and funding it. And I agree with what Pastor John just said. We need people who will stand up, men and women. For me, this is really personal. I just got back from the state where that testimony was with that swimmer in Pennsylvania. My daughter is on a select 40 team, which is some of the top from all 50 states in the country. And we were in Pennsylvania in a tournament with girls. There is no comparison to the guys' basketball team and the girls' basketball teams. It is not even close. They're not the same. They can have the same rights. They're co-heirs with God, but they are born different. They're created. We're all created in God's image. And what's happening is they're stealing girls' sports when they come over there. If LeBron James goes into the WNBA, even at 40 years old, he's going to score 500 points a game. He can just stand there and dunk on them. It is unjust, and people need to speak against it. To get to your question, what people really need is courage. Lee said it great, I think. A lot of people are losing heart, and if you have ears to hear us tonight, please hear us. Don't lose heart, but government belongs to those who show up, and that's why we call it Million Voices. We want millions of people's voices to be heard, and it happens by what we're seeing tonight. You got two role models here, and Pastor John and Lee, that are doing it at the local level. You can do the same thing. We had it in our own school board. We flipped 6 seats in the last 3 cycles, and a few weeks ago they passed, and you're not using a pronoun other than what you're born with. You're not going to allow transgenders or boys to go steal girls' sports. But it happened because a lot of parents spoke out. You got to use your voice. You got to speak. You got to vote. You got to pray, and you got to in love, okay? Remember, and I want to say this because this is a spiritual program. Most of the people that are in this, if you listen to some of the testimony here of these people who tried to transition and they've ruined their life as a minor, they're coming from a position of trauma. And Satan wants to turn that trauma into a trend. And now a lot of these kids are going, oh, this is trendy, let's do it. And it's deceptive and it's destroying people. It's hurting people. We're not just fighting against it because it's evil. We're fighting against it because it's hurting kids. It's hurting people. And we need to have passion about our compassion to help people get saved from this and not be hindered.
The FlashPoint Live Truth and Freedom Tour is back in Fort Worth, Texas for a historic return to begin the Southwest Believers Convention.
Informative and take action. Here's the steps. Here's what we need you to do. You're the FlashPoint Army. Go to it.
Join us Sunday, July 30th at the Fort Worth Convention Center. For more information, visit us online at govictory.com/FPLive. Admission is free. Register today.